atop the world headquarters of Southeastern Fly. This is the Southeastern Fly podcast. Thanks for joining us for this episode. Hey, give us a positive review wherever you're listening to this right now. After this show, maybe not. Don't stop right now. But anyway, let's go ahead and move into today's subject. Let's talk about striper flies. I get out and striper fish with folks from time to time, and I've been out a little bit, couple times so far this summer, because our trout trips are still taking up most of our dates that are on the calendar, just about all of them actually. Um, and as the summer moves toward fall, we see more and more striper activity, especially in one of the rivers that we fish for trout. So we will chase them some. And what I've seen over the past several weeks is there are a lot of stripers around in our trout river, and thought, heck, might be fun to go out and chase them. I just need to get the opportunity to do that, but they're not as easy to catch as what you think they might be. But the fish being there has led me to stock up on striper flies, or shall I say, stock up on striper ammo. So let's think of this as a striper fly primer, not a stripper fly, striper fly primer, because there's an upcoming episode with Daniel Roberts. He's the owner of Beaver Lake Fly Fishing, and that episode is going to be going to be a real technical episode on stripers with lots of intel. But for now, here's the striper fly primer to kind of get you thinking about what's coming down the road. So, what about the fly? What about the fly design? This isn't the end all be all for striper flies, what we're fixing to go over today. These are just some things I've done to my flies as I've been starting to tie some of those. So, I'm going to start with the hook. And if it's action you need, wait a minute, from the hook? Yes, you can get action out of the hook. Everybody wants to think action in the materials they tie with, and that's partly true, but a 60-degree jig hook with the point riding up just provides more up and down action. The 60-degree has a part of the shank toward the eye that's just a little better. The shorter the 60-degree, the better, in my opinion, the shorter the hook. If you fish these hooks, then you know you have an advantage to that up and down jigging action. The swimming is up and down depending on the strip movement, the tip, rod tip, all that stuff, but still it can influence the swim. You can jerk strip these, short strip, make quick up and down movements while the fly is still coming back to you. You could also jig with these hooks, and what I mean by jig is almost, if you can get close enough to stripers, you can get a little closer to trout than you can stripers. Stripers are a little weary most of the time. The fly can just make those big up and down movements, and if you're going to jig it, I mean, the hook sets with the fly rod are more conventional gear type hook sets. So if you're jigging up and down, think more bass hook sets, which tends to not really with the long rod. Maybe it doesn't drive the hook as far as you need. So you want to sharpen the point of the hook. You want to do some things there. Make sure that you've got a good grip on the rod. Make sure that you've got a good pull. Make sure that you have a rod that's going to allow you to do that. Sometimes a shorter, bigger rod, fly rod, will be good. And I think we've seen over the past some of the competition rods have been, bigger rods but shorter for like bass tournaments and stuff like that. So you think along those lines. It's just more difficult to bass set with a fly rod. Also, you run the risk of setting the hook and it just getting out in front of the fish, and the fish has to look for the fly. So another thing that you have to do is make sure that you've got a good take before you do that. You can still strip set, you can still do all those things, don't get me wrong, but it's just a little bit different if you want to be able to bass set. So shorter rod, bigger around, more force, little less action in the tip actually is what you're probably looking for there. So it's possible. Sometimes that extra jigging motion is worth the hook set. I think, I don't know. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with them, but I've got some tied up over there behind me, and we're going to look at using those here in the next little bit. So let's talk J hooks now. This is your conventional common style hook you see. has its own purposes. The action, yes, is a little less. Weight still will influence this hook. Normally, dumbbells eyes are found for weight, so dumbbell eyes, sometimes lead, and on the front, where a bait fish's eye would be. But think of that weight as more like an arrow. It's going to allow that fly to go more straight. So you have to put a little bit extra action somewhere if you want to do that. Now you can bend that shank right or left a little bit if you want to, and make the fly present more broadside that way. You really need to consider the current. Which way does that bend present the fly? Will it always be on the same side of the current? If you're bait fishing, maybe. If you're fishing from a boat, likely not. You're going to want to hit different banks. Also, that manual bend can weaken the shank a little bit. And remember, bigger fish equals more power. Those hooks will be much easier to break. So the J hook is probably the granddaddy of all hooks. It shouldn't be tossed to the side just because it doesn't have that jigging motion. That J hook has its purposes. It solves for some problems. It's not as sexy as the jig hook, but certainly it's useful. It's been around for probably hundreds of thousands, maybe thousands of years. So it's definitely something worth considering. And if you're trying some J hooks, try some patterns that you have on J hooks and tie the same ones on a conventional hook, and just that way you'll be ready. So I'm sorry, on a jig hook, not a conventional hook and a jig hook. It's been a long day, folks, and I've been out for the past several days, going about as quick as I can go in the heat, trying to put people on fishing. Whew, I'm a little bit tired today. But let's talk lead. Let's talk weight. Not just for weight and sinking the fly, lead can also provide action for you. So further toward the front of the fly, lead eye, stuff like that, the fly is going to act more like an arrow. Midsection, it's more for leveling the fly. Usually you'll put a little bit of lead kind of in midsection to let the fly sink level. Also, if you've got some eyes on the front, you want to slide that weight a little bit more back versus the midsection. And you just have to play around with this if you're really into that, and try to figure out where that lead needs to be. A 5 gallon bucket will work for that. Just drop it in and see how it decides it wants to float. I would also tie some whatever tippet or whatever pound test you're going to use. I'd also tie that on the front too, just to make sure that you have a really good idea of how that fly is going to sink. If you've got front weight and you're wanting to weight the middle or toward the rear to make that fly uh, let go down level and come back more level, if you will. Rear weight, you can use normally scud nymph bodies are really good for this. You might have to spread them out a little bit. You may have to do a little bit of adjustment to them, but these putting that rear weight like that scud nymph body lead bodies, that makes the head ride more up, and you may end up sliding those back to counterbalance the eye weight of the eyes. Also, one thing to consider here is with the weight in the rear, it's not quite exactly as the opposite of putting weight in the front, but that weight will tend to want to keep on traveling in the direction it's going. So if you've got a little bit of side to side motion, that weight is going to cock that fly to the side a little bit more if it's on the back, and give it a little bit of a broadside look on the stop on the strip. Again, that increases the action. With rear weight, that action is more of a stop on the strip and then cock sideways a little bit. You're not going to get a big, like you would out of a T-bone, something like that, but you're going to get a little bit of movement left to right. So that's a little bit about weight and a little bit about your hooks. Just like I said, it's a primer. I think Daniel's going to have some good information for us, but let's move on to fly tying materials. So I want to think about materials from a different perspective here. Are you using materials because that's what you have, or are you using material because it solves a problem? Same thing with substituting material. Are you using a substitution because it's what you have and it's kind of close? Or are you substituting because it solves a problem on a current pattern? So just I just start with a pattern and then try to go with the original materials if I can. If I can get them, I'm going to use them. And yes, I want to see if it works. That's the main thing. A lot of people have got these ideas of what a good fly is, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But if I want to invest my time, I'm going to try to get a hold of one and fish it, see how it works. If it's something that I'm thinking, yeah, you know what, this one's worth my investment. I may want to invest my time and my thoughts on this pattern. Then I'll go back and try to find the recipe. Always tie two because the first one goes in a tree and a blowdown on the bottom, or because of a poor knot. Murphy's Law just almost always wins the first fly. Clear water, do you need a pattern with a little less material? Possibly, yeah. Murky water, do you need a pattern with a little more material to push water to alert those fish in their lateral lines? Then maybe by sight. I would say yes. Colors, folks, we could spend all day on colors, but we won't. Everybody's kind of got their favorite color. Everybody's going to kind of got their favorite look of the fly, and everybody's got their own reasons, me included. I don't know that my thoughts on colors are exactly right. I do know that, I'll start light so I can see the fly and see what it's doing. Then if I need to go dark, I'll go way dark if I've got that pattern in like a black or even a dark green, something like that, and then just kind of go back and forth across the color wheel. If I've got enough of that pattern, like I said, tie two. That means try to tie two of every color. So you just got to do what kind of has been working for you. But if you're really out there exploring, you'll want to get your hands on some different kinds of different colors of the same pattern, made with the same hooks, with the weight in the same place, then maybe the weight in a different place, and then maybe different colors with different weights. So just something to think about there. Stripping and jerk strips, however you retrieve that fly, that matters. But more than that, and go back and listen to the fly fishing muskie tournaments. Listen around the 3/4 mark. That was a couple of episodes ago. I can't remember what, maybe 2 episodes or 3 episodes, where we talked to the three guys that won the muskie tournament up in Kentucky. Something that one of the guys said, talked about the retrieve, is staying in contact with the fly. Now, what does that mean? This is something that I've really we got back from the salt water out at Chandelier Islands. Gosh, maybe it's a month ago now. I can't remember when we were even out there. And one thing that I was doing, we were fishing for tarpon, and one thing I was doing was really trying to make sure that I was in contact with that fly uh, at all times. What does that mean? That's not how fast you retrieve. That's not the jerk strip, the wrist strip, just not just pulling the rope, as they say. That's staying in contact with the fly at all times. So I can feel that fly at all times. The fly's moving the way you want it to move. That way, the pattern is designed to swim a certain way, and that's the way it's swimming. That may be one of the most important thing you could ever do with the streamers. I jumped a tarpon down there, and I was really focused on that cast. I know I was, because I was thinking I've got a shot at this one. We were kind of blind tarpon fishing, if you can believe that, but there were plenty of them around to let us know that we could do it that way. And one was eating, some bait was running, and I tossed the fly to it. It was a little ways out there. Threw the fly in there. I was really staying in contact, and just about the time that I felt like, well, it should be about halfway down to the bottom now, the fish ate and turned, it jumped, and that was about it. But still, really focusing on that staying in contact. I can't express to you how much that makes a difference, and I've been seeing that in our trout trips. The more I feel like I'm preaching that now, and I'm really not. There isn't anybody on the river that wants you to catch a fish worse than me. So I'm going to do everything I can and do everything that I know to help folks catch a fish. So if they're stripping streamers, you can do it however you want to. It doesn't matter. If you want to jerk strip, that's fine. If you just want to wrist strip, that's fine. If you want a long strip, that's fine. I just want to make sure that if you're doing that, that there's never really any slack to speak of in the line, and you're always in contact with that fly. I think that hook choice is important. Eyes versus no eyes, that could be important. Material that solves a problem, that is important. Staying in contact with the fly, focus on the feeling the fly, focus on actually trying to swim that fly. That's critical and that matters. I guess other striper fly considerations that you might have in a river, things seem to happen pretty fast. Sometimes you see them coming. Oh, here they come, excited voices. Easy to blow. It's easy to blow those shots where you see them coming and you know they're coming and you know they're there. And that's sometimes that's the hardest cast to make and hardest retrieve to stay focused on, especially when everybody starts getting excited. That can be just really tough. Usually, since there's really no birds here to speak of that'll tell me where the fish are, like there are in the salt and on the lakes. There's a lot of blind casting, a whole lot of blind casting, hitting those high value targets. Blowdowns, tree stumps, other types of woods, rocks, stocking points for trout. Those are sometimes really good. Um, and resting water for beside fast moving water. Again, building that fly should be looked at as solving a problem for these types of conditions, tying that fly with a purpose, choosing hooks with a purpose, choosing materials with a purpose. Back to water types is a good way to look at that. A good fly shop is invaluable. We've got a really good fly shop in Nashville with some folks that like to striper fish. So I tap on them every once in a while and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? There's a person who works in the shop there that ties flies with a purpose, very similar to what I've been trying to do. And that communication back and forth is invaluable. Just reading a recipe on the interweb is okay, but maybe watching a YouTube video is better. Talking to whoever's tying those flies and designing those flies with a purpose is something that is one more step in getting you closer to catching one of those fish. And with that, remember, hit the like, click the follow, give us a positive review wherever you listen to podcasts. You just listened to a striper fly primer on Southeastern Fly. We'll see you next time.